Global markets advanced after news of bin Laden's death. Middle East shares climbing as Egypt's benchmark stock index gained the most in almost 2 weeks. Edward Djerejian, he's the former U.S. ambassador to Syria and Israel. He's currently managing partner and founder of Djerejian Global Consultancies. He joins us now from Rice University in Houston, Texas. Mr. Ambassador, welcome to Bottom Line. Always a pleasure to have you on.
Pleasure to be with you, Mark.
Mr. Ambassador, you just heard our report from our correspondent Peter Cook. Some members on Capitol Hill are asking a very blunt question. Is it possible that Pakistani officials did not know that Osama bin Laden was in their midst?
I think that's a very important question. I think we have to probe a little deeper into our ambiguous partner or ally in Pakistan. I think what we have to understand is Pakistan is always going to hedge its bets vis-a-vis the Taliban, vis-a-vis Al-Qaeda, because the Pakistani military and the intelligence services, their whole basic national security orientation is vis-a-vis India. India is considered to be the major threat to Pakistan. And you know, they fought 3 wars. They're both over Kashmir. They're both nuclear weapon states. And there are groups such in Pakistan, including and particularly Lashkar-e-Taiba, the LET, that has aided and abetted Al-Qaeda.
Right.
And the Pakistani intelligence has used the LET in Kashmir. So this relationship is always going to be, in my words, a bit ambiguous because LET may very well have known where bin Laden was.
Mr. Ambassador, then, how does this then change the relationship between Washington and Islamabad?
Well, the relationship, both sides have a vested interest in maintaining the relationship, but it's a very difficult one. It's a very complex one. And I think the major thrust is to get Pakistan to be more transparent with us in terms of what our policies are in Afghanistan, what Pakistan is willing and not willing to do with groups like the Al-Haqqani network, and come clean. Because we have well over 100,000 troops in Afghanistan. We're fighting a war there. We're investing blood and treasure, and as you've stated in your reports, $20 billion worth of aid to Pakistan, especially oriented toward counterterrorism efforts. So therefore, I think we need to get a little tougher with the Pakistanis in our bilateral dialogue
and
really come to...
Mr. Ambassador, I'm sorry, but I wanted to ask you then, you mentioned the $20 billion in aid, and as Peter Cook mentioned, Susan Collins, the Republican from Maine, saying that perhaps we need to take a closer look at that. Should the time come right now when members of Congress say that unless they get some tangible answers from Pakistan, that maybe that aid won't be forthcoming?
I think the President and the Obama administration can use the criticism coming from the Hill to toughen our bilateral dialogue with Pakistan and demonstrate that we have to have more clarity from Pakistan on what it's willing to do and what it's not willing to do.
Mr. Ambassador, how does the death of Osama bin Laden change the geopolitical structure in the Middle East?
Well, that's a very tough question, but I think basically there are 2 major trends that are occurring. One, of course, is the Arab awakening, the popular revolutions and uprisings in the Arab world, which are changing the whole political landscape of the Arab world as we've known it. The people are demanding their basic rights after decades of repression under various autocracies. This is a fundamental change in the Middle East that U.S. policy is going to have to adapt to how we respond to these changes country by country. I think differentiation is very important. What's interesting is in the Arab uprising, Al-Qaeda had no role. It was not cited, it was ignored. And Islamic radicalism was ignored. That's a good sign. So you couple the Arab awakening with the death of Osama bin Laden, and those are 2 very good developments in the long term. But Mark, in the short term, it's going to be very rocky and very dangerous.
Edward Djerejian, he's the former U.S. ambassador to Syria and Pakistan, joining us from Rice University in Houston. Mr. Ambassador, thank you for your time. We appreciate it.
My pleasure.
Coming up on